Well, here's the latest on the attempted revolt in Russia. Vladimir Putin's top officials are meeting with allies China and North Korea. That a day after the Wagner mercenary group halted its dramatic advance toward the capital of Moscow. This is we're now learning that U.S. intelligence officials held briefings at the White House, the Pentagon, and Capitol Hill last week about the Wagner group's movements. And there are also reports that Vladimir Putin knew about the rebellion at least a day before it began. Ohio Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup is with us. He is a member of the House Intelligence Committee and an Iraq War veteran. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, the reports say that congressional leaders were briefed on Wednesday, obviously without giving up anything that you can't talk about. What is the significance of this, and what do officials do? Do they sit on it? Do they wait? Do they observe and see how all of this plays out?
Well, you mean as far as United States officials?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think some of it we see how it plays out, but I think there's some things that we can certainly play on. But let's take a look at what this group is. This is a group of mercenaries. They're for hire. They're not patriotic Russians that are trying to advance the cause of Mother Russia in Ukraine. They are for hire. Now, I think a lot of their troops themselves, their official troops, have the same problem, but that's a different story because they're conscripted. So these mercenaries, they're really like a union, if you will. And this was one of their ways of lodging their complaints about the conditions within their work, with their working. It's almost like they're trying to advance towards their human resources person to make their complaints. But it also has the optics of treason. And this is something that the Russian people are seeing because it's in their streets. And I think that is a powerful message against Putin. And I think that the United States, NATO officials, everyone that's involved with trying to see what happens in Ukraine and especially defeating Russia should play on this and say that this is not something that the people want and that this should not be taking place and it's falling apart. Now, why he's meeting with China, North Korea, etc., I think he's going to try and build up their confidence that he's got things under control. But it certainly doesn't look like he does. And I think this is a real offense to his offensive.
Do you think Putin is in a panic? Do you think that he really is concerned about his future, especially when the Russian people see tanks in the streets and they're all on Telegram seeing what's actually being played out?
Absolutely. He should be worried about it. He should have been worried about it from the start, because I think deep down in the hearts and minds of the Russian people, they don't want this. I mean, he's pulling people out of prison to go to fight. This isn't like, World War II, where we say we've got to go take on this enemy and people are stepping up to volunteer in defense of freedom, for example, for the United States. This is nothing like that. And these are hired mercenaries. They do not have the same morale and motives of a typical national war, because they're really not part of that per se. And they may wear a uniform, they may be Russians, but that's not the game that they're in. And if they don't have what they need, then they're going to complain. And I think that that's what we're seeing here. And I think it is a real problem for Putin. And actually, frankly, I hope it is.
And what's your prediction finally about what potentially could happen to Putin in the next few weeks or months? Could this be potentially the beginning of the end for this bloodthirsty, dynamic enemy of humanity?
Well, you described him well, and I hope that that's the case. But he's going to have to do a tremendous amount of spin to try and convince the Russian people that everything is going well and that they should be doing this. I mean, there isn't one thing about taking Ukraine that benefits the Russian people on a day-to-day basis. Not one thing. And then when they see tanks in their streets coming from their own people, if you will, he's got a real problem on his hands.
Ohio Republican Congressman Brad Wenstrup, member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thank you for joining us. We'll follow up and see what happens to him and his rule.
Yes, we will.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.